Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, August 15th, 2018. I am Dave Biddle, very happy to be joined by the People's Champ, Matt Baxendell. Bax, we will get to the Urban Meyer stuff later in the show, but let's kick off the show with some gasp football talk. Yeah, let's actually talk some football. I know, what? I mean, it's this really cool sport. I think it might take off. I like it. So let's actually talk a little Buckeye football. We'll start with the offensive line. What do you expect the starting offensive line will look like in 2.5 weeks when Oregon State comes to town? Are you buying Mike Jordan at center? Are you buying Demetrius Knox at left guard if Mike Jordan does play center? Brady Taylor, how do you feel about him? Thayer Munford, just how do you think the offensive line is going to shake out?
Well, first of all, I am just shocked, and shocked, I tell you, that we're talking about some sport when we could be talking about Jerry Springer. But I guess I'll give it a try here because I'm not quite sure how to do this, but I'll try. I thought we wrote it for Buck TMZ or something, but I digress. So this football sport that you speak of, let's talk about the offensive line. First of all, since we're in the middle of a media blackout and we're only hearing rumors and secondhand stuff from people who actually get to watch practice, who knows at this point is obviously the first answer we all have to give because we haven't let OSU watch practices. There's no interviews with the coaches. Ryan Day isn't even talking to the press right now. And you figured he'd be like, guys, here's the deal. I'm not talking about the investigation, but we can talk about the team. That hasn't even happened yet. So at this point, I don't expect it to happen. So we're going from what we're hearing and what little tiny morsels people have seen. That said, I like the idea of Michael Jordan at center. Ohio State obviously has a great tradition of guards who have played a year or two transitioning over to center as the experienced signal caller in the middle. That's the Pat Elflein or that's the Billy Price project there, right? I mean, that's just, by the way, both those guys turned out all right at center, I think. So if you're going to tell me that you have the opportunity to put Michael Jordan at center and you're going to end up having Brandon Bowen and Demetrius Knox as your guards, I like that. I think that's 3 better linemen on the field than Jordan, one of Bowen or Knox, and Brady Taylor. Purely because, let's face it, we haven't seen a lot of Brady Taylor. It seems like he's always been that placeholder, like solid, but nobody's really wowed by him kind of guy. And I think OSU is doing everything they can to not go to Brady Taylor. Brady Taylor's like the guy who hits the golf ball down the middle of the fairway 200 yards. He's going to have an easy follow-up. Great. But they really want that guy who can hit it 300. And I think that's kind of what they're looking at here. So that certainly intrigues me, especially with a guy like Michael Jordan who, at his experience level, is going to be a guy who, let's face it, he's played as much as anybody on that line, including Isaiah Prince, who's the lineman everybody wants to talk about first. So I like the idea of it. Whether it plays out that way remains to be seen, but I'm certainly not against it. And as for Thayer Munford, we said this before any of this scandal shenanigans happened. The staff is overwhelmed by the kid already. I never really like to talk about John Cooper very much, but he had one thing that's pretty true. He said if a pup's going to bite, he's going to bite young, right? And that's simple. You got Munford who came in redshirted and is following the tradition of kids who get a year under their belt, compete against a higher experience level, get that extra high-level training, and boom, all of a sudden, off they go. There's plenty of examples of it at all kinds of positions for OSU, and I feel fine about Munford. He's going to make some mistakes. He's young, but it appears that the talent level and the performance is high enough that they're not even considering another guy to even challenge him. So you got to feel pretty good about that spot, and I don't know. I have never really been that worried about the O-line. I know a lot of people are, but it's not a concern to me right now. I'm much more worried about the linebackers. I'm much more worried about the coaching situation than I am about the offensive line. So, taking a page out of Biddle's book and making a short story long, that's where I stand on the O-line.
Listen, if you were going to quote Michigan's favorite football coach, John Cooper, you got to get it right. It's if a dog is going to bite, he'll bite as a pup. Well,
okay, fine, whatever. I wasn't around for the Cooper era, thank God. So sorry to everybody who was. You have my sympathies.
This is why you don't have psychological problems, is because you are not around.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves about me not having psychological problems here, Dave, okay? That may be a bridge too far, but it's not John Cooper's fault, at least if I do.
You don't have as many as you would if you lived through the Cooper era.
Yes,
and you mentioned your biggest. Yeah, you mentioned your biggest concern is linebackers. That was going to be my next question, Bax. Starting linebackers, that's going to be the question I throw at you. We've heard there could be some Pete Werner in the middle. Tough Borland's status is up in the air. Even Urban Meyer said at Big Ten Media Days that Tough Borland wouldn't be ready to start the season. So I know he's been out there running around. I saw him with my own two eyes running around there with pads on. But he's not going to be ready to start the season. But I like the idea of Pete Werner getting some reps in the middle. Just your prediction on the starting linebackers for the Buckeyes.
Harrison, Werner, Browning. Short and concise. I think, obviously, Tough Borland's going to play a big role when he gets back. I think we have to be careful with two things with Tough Borland, though. One, again, he's coming off of a pretty severe injury. That's not easy to recover from. I've been preaching caution on him for months. And two, let's not lionize Tough Borland as, James Laurinaitis Part 2 yet. He played very well last year as a true freshman, right? But he still obviously has some room to grow and develop. And the linebacker play last year wasn't, spectacular by any means anyways. So I'm excited to see Borland come back. I certainly have high hopes for him. But, let's face it, Werner is a guy who has a lot of potential. A lot of people really like him. And, I just made a James Laurinaitis comparison, and obviously you can't say anything about these guys yet in terms of one of the greatest linebackers in OSU history. But if you remember James Laurinaitis at the end of his freshman year, everybody thought he was an outside guy. There was no thought of James Laurinaitis as a middle linebacker. And then all of a sudden he seamlessly transitioned over to middle linebacker, seemingly out of nowhere, and became a superstar. Pete Werner's kind of the same thing. None of us really ever thought about him as a middle guy. You figured he was an outside guy. And they really wanted to put Browning in the middle. Or they were, Tough Borland already had that spot locked down, so figure out where we put Werner later, right? Well, what if Werner's one of those guys, kind of like Laurinaitis, where you move him to the middle and he just thrives? And by the way, it doesn't seem like we're really talking about Baron Browning in the middle anymore. And that was something I think the coaching staff wanted to have happen. So, I think it's going to be interesting to see how these guys play. Obviously, the position group that I think we've all been most worried about in terms of both coaching and experience is the linebackers. But that's kind of what it looks like it's shaping up to me. I think that's what the coaching staff wants to have happen. We haven't heard noise about Justin Hilliard all of a sudden making some gigantic move to start. Dante Booker's back, which I don't think a lot of us expected, but he's changed his number to it's like number 53 or some random number now, and that doesn't make a lot of sense. And he didn't know if he was with the team for a while, so I don't think we can count on him to be a big contributor. Those are kind of the guys right there that the main guys. You're going to have, Hilliard probably in the mix, especially early when they're hopefully pounding teams. And, whenever Tough Borland gets back, they're going to have some decisions to make. But as of right now, I think you've got a core of 4 or 5 guys are the ones that are going to play in your base sets. And I also have to say this. I think with all of our worries about linebackers, I think Malik Harrison was very good last year. I think he showed a lot of potential and got better as the year went on. And if I had to pick one of those guys to be a breakout guy this year, it's Malik Harrison. He's huge. He's the quote-unquote Alabama linebacker, the 6'4" guy who runs like a gazelle that weighs 240 pounds, right? So, I don't think we're as bad at linebackers as everybody is still scarred by the Iowa experience. But, it's a position group, man. We got to see it to believe it right now. That's, to me, the biggest concern about this team, obviously not including the awful horribleness that's going on outside of actual football.
Bax, who do you think the starting field safety will be? You think it's pretty much a two-man race, it looks like to me, with Amir Reep and Isaiah Pryor, although there could be others in the mix. Jocelyn Wint, Brendan White. Who do you think is going to be that starter opposite Jordan Fuller at safety?
Yeah, that's a loaded question because I think we all thought for a while it was going to be Pryor, but then they moved Amir Reep over, and we've heard nothing but good things about him, right? I thought it was kind of telling the one time the media got to go in, the order that the safeties did the drills in. Every drill up first was Jordan Fuller. No surprise. He's the leader of the group. But second, every drill was Amir Reep. It wasn't Isaiah Pryor, the 5-star guy that we all thought was going to take the role over. Does that mean something? Who the heck knows? But in a race that close, if somebody's consistently the one ahead of him in line, then maybe that's a good guess to have. So, I think you're going to see both play a lot this year. No question in my mind about it. But if I had to guess right now, I think Reep's going to be the one who jogs onto the field first against Oregon State.
All right, that was fun talking about football. Let's close the show. What will happen with Urban Meyer, in your opinion? Not what should happen. What do you think, if you had to bet your house, Bax, what will happen and when will we know? All
right, back to TMZ and Jerry Springer. Gosh, I missed it. It was like 10 minutes of actually talking about football.
Jerry.
Perez Hilton, live from Ohio Stadium. The Kardashians are coming next week. All right, anyways. Yeah, I know, shoot me. I can't wait till we get back to just talking about football. Or the only TMZ stuff we're laughing about is how crazy Jim Harbaugh is. So at this point, if I had to bet my house on it, I would bet that Urban's keeping his job. I think the only thing that's potentially a question there is what Michael Drake decides to do and whether he lets the politics of the situation affect it at all. I think from a legal point of view, OSU has no cause to fire Urban Meyer with cause, if you will. So it means they're either going to pay Urban Meyer $39 million, not the coach, or just say, hey, wait, we'll keep the number 1A coach in college football. So I think what they're going to do, though, is they're going to put some sort of token suspension or fine or some crap on him, but makes it look like Urban's contrite about something here purely for PR purposes. I don't think he should be suspended, but it wouldn't surprise me if they came up with some sort of excuse to suspend him for the Oregon State game, citing, quote, dishonesty with the media or some BS. If I had to bet how it plays out, I think it's a fine and a suspension for Urban for quote, misbehavior at media days, and I think everything else otherwise comes cleared out of it. And Urban issues some statement about being apologetic about the way he conducted himself at media days, and then announces that he's creating some fund with his daughters or something to help with domestic violence in Central Ohio. Like, that's how I think this is all going to play out, is that Urban's going to make a focus of the rest of his tenure to make sure he's helping with battered women and shelters and stuff. And you're going to see the team showing up and trying to do good charitable things involving that stuff as well. I absolutely see that as being part of the whole, like, quote unquote, publicity coming out of it. But I do not think Urban Meyer loses his job, and I think we have an announcement on his fate in the next couple of days here. I don't know how much more there is really to investigate at this point. There's all kinds of horrible publicity going on around the Smith divorce, which is becoming the worst divorce in public since the Brangelina divorce. And at this point, none of that has anything to do with Urban Meyer other than to back up his point of, I didn't really know what to believe between the two, and the cops said that there was no reason to charge, so I had to trust the police. I mean, this is he said, she said, gone to the nth degree. And, you can criticize Urban Meyer for the way he conducted himself with the media. You can even criticize him for keeping Zach Smith on staff for performance reasons, or, heck, even with all this other stuff going on, you can criticize him saying Urban probably should have known better. He sees the guy every day. But fireable? No. Suspendable? You'd have to stretch it, but this is Ohio State, where we've never shown the backbone to back our coach like an Alabama would if this was Nick Saban. So I expect Ohio State's going to prostrate themselves before the idiot media and put some sort of token suspension and fine on Urban. I hope they don't, but if this is, Jim Harbaugh has a gun at my head and my house is on the line, that's what I think is going to happen.
Great stuff, as always, from the People's Champ, Matt Baxendell. You will not want to miss Bax's column this Sunday. It is the Bucket, of course. Thank you very much, Bax, and thanks to all the listeners out there for tuning in the show. I appreciate it. Hope you have a great day. Let's hear that Buckeye swag. Best damn band in the land.